go to Amazon and search The Lost Art of Fishing Stories. The Lost Art Project, Veteran Voices with Andrew Cox. Preserving history, one veteran story at a time. Marine Corps League and Till Valhalla Project Ambassadors. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast that's given a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art Project, Veteran Voices with Andrew Cox.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Project, Veterans Voices. Man, are you in for a treat today? Why? Well, I got a super special guest. I'm very excited about it. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? Make sure you go to the website. That's thelostart.podbean.com. Go check us out, see what we're all about. There's a couple ways you can help support us. You can go on that website, click on that merchandise tab, go get you some cool merchandise. You can get you a cool sweat or a hoodie. You can get you a hat. You can get you all kinds of stuff. There's good stuff there, but you can help support us that way. A big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project out there doing amazing things. If you don't know anything about them, you need to go check them out. Even if you do know something about them, go back and check them out because we're always updating that information and always doing new and awesome things. You can always find.
Oh, shit. Did I just...
Service organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member. All right, here we are. Man, oh man, I'm excited. Why am I excited? Because we have Gunny Claus with us today. Man, this is so cool. I've seen you around when I was active duty. I was in the band. You came to several concerts and things like that. So I'm excited that I get to get a Gunny Claus on here and we get to have a conversation. So welcome.
Gung ho ho.
I love it. I love it. Well, shoot, I'm excited that you're going to tell us some of your story and what's going on and talk about Gunny Claus and what that means and what you do. So I'm super excited. So I guess let's just start at the beginning, if you don't mind. Kind of where did you grow up? What was that like? And then what led you to military service?
So I grew up in Albany, New York. My father survived the German occupation of Denmark during World War II.
Oh, wow.
And my mother's family is from Sweden, and they survived the Japanese occupation of the Philippines during World War II.
Wow.
So there's a little bit of the military appreciation that was in my life as a kid. And as a kid, I also liked reading comic books. And some of my favorite comic books were the military-related ones. I think my favorite for a long time was the Sergeant Rock series.
Okay.
And then years later, through Spider-Man, the Punisher came out. And the backstory then was he was a Vietnam vet. He was a Marine, Special Forces, and then got out and joined law enforcement and became the Punisher. And so those all struck a chord with me. And I actually tried to attend a military school here when I was younger, but I was a slight discipline problem, and they asked that I not return.
Well, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, that's funny.
And I'd always, even as a young kid, I'd been interested in the military, and so I talked to the recruiters when I was in high school. Didn't really feel like it was what I wanted right away, so I tried several, minimum wage jobs. Lived my life for about 2 years. Realized I wasn't going to go anywhere, and the just happened. I was home at my mother's house trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And the Marine recruiter called me. Uh,
Oh,
it's
did a
a
cold call on you.
well, I had already been in the system, and
Oh,
he,
okay.
he was a new recruiter, and so he's going through the list again of possible contacts. And
Yeah.
I remember my brother answering the phone saying I wasn't there, and I said, "Who's not there?" And he's like, "There's some dude on the phone for you." And I was like, "All right." I pick up the phone, and it's Staff Sergeant Steve Martin.
Steve Martin. Okay.
No relation to the comedian, but uh,
That would have been pretty wild.
but it's pretty funny that you think about it, what his name was and how he got me in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And we talked for a little bit, went back and forth, and then on 14 November 1985, I signed in the delayed entry program, uh,
Okay.
having forgotten that was my father's birthday. And so this is before cell phones and pagers and everything else.
Yeah.
We did have answering machines, and so I get home, and the first message is my mother saying, about noon, saying, "Don't forget your father's birthday today." And then the subsequent messages get a little bit more insistent, and uh, needless to say, she realized I had forgotten his birthday. But I made it down for the celebration, and I broke the news to my family that I enlisted in the Marine Corps, and I'd be shipping out February of 1986 to be a military policeman.
That's awesome. So, military police, military police is a very interesting dynamic in the Marine Corps. At least, I guess, probably all branches of service. It
Well,
could be.
in the Marine Corps specifically, we are the redheaded stepchildren. The Marine Corps likes our capabilities, likes the training that we can do, and the things that we can get the Marine Corps into with other civilian agencies.
Yeah.
But they really don't look at us as military police. They look at us as multi-purpose. So whenever
Mm-hmm.
they need something done and they don't have personnel readily available, we're the first
Yeah.
people they call. So even though I was an MP for 21 years, I learned how to be a forklift driver. I learned a lot about NBC. I learned a lot about heavy weapons because when you're assigned to a deployable unit, we're basically a CAT team. Uh,
Oh yeah.
we each squad would be three vehicles. We'd have a 50 cal, a Mark 19, and a 240 Golf.
Mm-hmm.
Since we didn't have uh, three platoons in our company, we only really had one platoon.
Uh-huh.
Every Marine that wasn't on a heavy weapon had an M203 and a 9 mil.
Wow.
So when we were rolling around, we were rolling deep.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Holy
and
cow.
and of course the vehicle also has a saw. So every vehicle had a
Mhm.
saw on top of whatever heavy weapon it had.
Good Lord, man.
Yeah.
Y'all were smacked to the hill.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, talk to me a little bit, if you don't mind. Talk to me about your experience going to boot camp. Right. What was your mindset walking into it? What was it like when you got there? And then what was the good and the bad that you experienced?
Um, Boot camp has changed a lot. In fact, I was just down at Paris Island before Christmas. I went down to visit. Hadn't been down there since 2010 when my godson graduated boot camp.
Okay.
Um, but it has to change. It has to be. It has to connect to the people today. You can't train a Marine um, my age from my era the way you train Marines today, and just the same way you couldn't train Marines from World War II to the way that you train Marines in the 80s. Uh, so there wasn't a lot of information on what boot camp was unless you actually met somebody who just came home from boot camp. There wasn't the internet, there wasn't this, network of a way of communicating and finding out and watching YouTube and TikTok and all that to see what's going on. It was just, hey, that guy over there was a Marine. And you look over at him and you're like, well, he doesn't look any different than anybody else. But then you get up close and you start talking to him and you have this feeling that there's something distinctly different about them.
Right.
And it's hard to explain until you've become a Marine that you all of a sudden get like this spidey sense where you can tell in a crowd who's a Marine and who's been a Marine. And
Mm-hmm.
friends of mine are like, yeah, that's BS, that's impossible. And I'm like, okay, and I've been called out and I've been tested on it. And one time I was in a bar, I was home on leave. There's probably 200 people in the bar, and the girl that I was seeing at the time is like, there's no way. And I'm like, okay. And I look across the bar, and it's big venue. There's a live band that had been playing, and it'd take a break. And I
Right.
look across the bar, and I see a guy standing ordering a drink, and I'm like, that guy right there, you know, didn't have a Marine anything that said Marine on him, and he couldn't even, from the distance, even if he did, I wouldn't be able to see it.
Right.
And so she's like, all right. And so she goes across, see him talk for a second, turns around, looks, in my vague direction, locks eyes on me and gives me the thumbs up, you know. And she comes back and she's like, how did you do that? I go, it's just something that's in us now. You can't,
Yeah.
it's instilled in you in 13 weeks in boot camp. It's your drill instructors pound it into your head. And, all that camaraderie that of the recruits that you're with. I may not
Mm-hmm.
know everybody's name that I was in boot camp with, but
Right.
if I see him, I'll be like, yeah, I know you. Where do I know you from?
Yeah. 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 That happens a lot. You run on somebody, you're like, I don't know where, but I know you from somewhere.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that happened during boot camp for us was we bombed Libya,
Okay.
and so I remember the senior drill instructor coming on deck, rolling out the TV, big black and white TV, and turns it on, and there's Walter Cronkite talking about how we just bombed Libya, and
Wow.
the special news broadcast breaks. He turns it off, and he goes, "That's it, boys. We're going to war." And 99% of us were jacked up, ready to go. And this one guy is like, "I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for the band. I play the trumpet." And we're all like, "You what? Huh? What band are you
Hey,
talking about?" And
that's
to
funny.
now do what I'm doing and wearing the band's uniform, it's just this
Yeah.
crazy, connection now.
Oh yeah, man. Being in the band is an interesting beast in itself. I will say that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. We had at MCRD San Diego when I was an MP there. We had the band, and you'd see them out there performing all the time, doing all sorts
oh
of
yeah.
events. Really getting no breaks when everybody else has a vacation or a holiday. They're out there working.
Oh yeah.
Um, with First Marine Division, the band was right there with us, and we would, since there wasn't an infantry company at headquarters battalion, we were always
Hmm.
tasked with taking them out, showing them how to fire the heavy weapons because that was
Yeah.
their job when we deployed.
Yeah.
That was their
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
They were a heavy weapons company and they guarded the general.
That's right.
And
That's
so,
right.
you know, we got real close to them and worked with them when they weren't performing.
Hmm.
You know,
Wow. Well, we definitely have some shared experiences with different places because I was definitely at both of those. So maybe at different time frames. I don't know for sure, but we'll figure it out as we go along here. So you finished boot camp. Did you go MCT? Was that 86?
86. If you remember, back in the 80s, Ronald Reagan was pushing a huge military budget,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, they had stopped funding the Osprey, the MV-22,
Mm-hmm.
because it was having a lot of problems and it was having a lot of cost overruns.
Right.
But the Marine Corps really wanted it. The Army had backed out, the Air Force had backed out, the Navy had backed out. Nobody else wanted this system, so the
Mm-hmm.
Marine Corps funded it itself. Took money from everything else and funded the Osprey on its own.
I didn't realize that had happened. That's pretty
It
wild.
happened for like a year or two, and
Mm-hmm.
so in that time, um, the non-infantry Marines went straight from boot camp to MOS school.
Oh wow. Okay. Very interesting.
And
So, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so you went directly from boot camp. You probably did 10 days leave or what have you,
7 days.
and 7 days, 7 days boot leave, and then went straight to MOS school.
Right. And so
Okay.
some of what was taught at MCT was sort of shoehorned into our weapons field training battalion in boot camp.
Oh.
So
Wow. Okay.
we went to when we went to the range, we actually fired the old M16A1s on full auto with bipods. We fired the old M60s. We fired the M1911s. Fam fired all those weapons to just get an idea of what they were, because we weren't going to
Yeah.
get it introduced to them at MCT.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's really cool when you look at how much boot camp changes throughout time, depending upon what's going on in the world.
Yeah, and you know, I hate to say it, I feel fortunate that I didn't actually go to MCT, because if you recall, the problem now that they've discovered with the water and the effects that it's had, the negative health effects it's had on everybody that's gone
Oh, yeah.
through.
Good point.
Thankfully, I wasn't exposed to that.
Mhm.
You know, I was right in that time frame, and
Oh yeah.
just by luck of the draw, the chance, whatever, I didn't go and I wasn't exposed to it.
Wow. That's pretty wild. Now, where was your MOS school? Missouri?
No, at the time it was Lackland Air Force Base.
Oh, okay.
We had been training with the Army, military police. And if you know anything about the Army and the Marine Corps, we have the biggest rivalry when it comes to anything. And so whatever the excuse was, we went to the Air Force, and we trained out there with them.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
How long did that happen?
I think that was less than 10 years,
Was it?
because maybe 15. But when the big conflict, I think Desert Shield, Desert Storm really showed that we needed more combat training, and that there wasn't the capability of the Air Force to do that. So we went back to training with the Army, because we could
Yeah.
we could do the training that we really required for the field, mounted weapons mounted on vehicles, patrolling, a lot of things that the Air Force didn't have. I mean, when I went through Lackland Air Force for our training and I was qualified on the pistol, this is another amazing story. It was the old M1911.
Mhm.
My pistol was actually made by Singer Sewing Company. It had been left over from World War II.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm looking at a weapon, that's older than my parents. Basically, I'm just like,
Wow.
so
That's impressive.
yeah. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm just like, and it was not very accurate, because it wasn't tight. It was so worn down.
Right.
And the range over, the security forces for the Air Force were qualifying with the M16A1, that they had rechambered to 22 caliber long rifle.
Mm.
So they weren't even firing 5.56. They weren't even firing 2.23. They were firing regular 22 long rifle rounds.
That's crazy. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Man. Things you don't even think about nowadays, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, how was the schoolhouse for you while you were there? I mean, I imagine it was like three months.
About 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the training, the Marine instructors were like, "This doesn't even pertain to you," because
Oh, wow.
well, because it was there. A lot of the standards were for Air Force,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and so they're like, other than the DD2, a DD form that we're going to use, that
Mhm.
every branch of the service used, all their policies, all their procedures really weren't what we were going to do as Marines in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
And so, we do it. So that those classes were really boring. We did the Air Force has what they call air base ground defense,
Okay.
and it's where their security police learn, some basic field skills on how
Mm,
to, uh, basically be infantry for a day.
right.
And they had to go through an infiltration course. And we're looking at this infiltration course, and we're like, yeah, who set up the jungle gym? Why are we at the kindergarten playground? You know,
Nice.
and the Air Force instructors were being tough on their guys. Like, oh, you got to get down low, you got to drag, and all this stuff. And we basically walked through the course and said, yeah, we're not doing this. This is a joke.
It's good stuff.
Yeah,
Wow.
and their Air Force did, they did do a PFT back then. It was a mile and a half run.
Okay.
That's all they had to do was a mile and a half run. So of course,
No kidding.
and so, we're doing our PT test, and we have to run 3 miles.
Yeah.
And I'm young, and I'm probably at the time, getting 18 minutes, 3 miles. So I'm running, I'm huffing and puffing. I do turn and burn, and I'm running back to the beginning. And about halfway back to the start point, the finish point, I see two Air Force guys walking and actually smoking a cigarette
During their test.
during their physical fitness test.
Nice.
And they're looking at their watch. They're like, "Yep, they had it timed, and they walked, never jogged. They just brisk walk
Wow.
and made their time. And they're we get all done, and they're like, "What was your score?" And I'm like, I got a 285 or better."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What's the minimum?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, what
Yeah.
what how slow could have you done that run?" And I'm like, 18 minutes. And they're like, "No, to pass, what would be the slowest you could go? 18 minutes." Because I never thought of, sandbagging and running at a jog or whatever. It's like,
Right.
how many pull-ups? 20. What's the minimum? Well, I remember the IST I had to do 3. And they're like,
Yeah.
does that pass? No. So what's that mean? I go, it's 20 pull-ups. you know,
It's funny.
you know,
Nice. Definitely shows the difference in the mentality between the two branches, when you're talking about standards and what it is that we need to do. So,
yeah. Oh yeah.
wow. Now, after your 3 months there at the schoolhouse, what was the first duty station that you went to?
So I was actually pretty lucky, and this is, when I joined Ronald Reagan, like I said earlier, was really pushing for a larger military, and was throwing money at the military. So I enlisted under the Quality Enlistment Program, and so I was guaranteed military police, 4-digit MOS, as opposed to the 2-digit occupational field, which gave me about a 25% chance of being a brig guard, which I had no interest in doing, which is really what made me sign under that program. So I was guaranteed military police 5811. I was also guaranteed corporal in 18 months. I was given $4,500 signing bonus.
Yeah, back then that was big money.
That was a lot of money. I used it well later on.
Nice.
And I was guaranteed East Coast, West Coast, or overseas. So I picked overseas. And so my first duty station was Okinawa, 3rd FSG.
Nice.
It's
Okay.
now 3rd MLG.
Right. Wow, very nice. So now walking in the door there, you're going overseas, first time overseas, I'm assuming?
I'd been to Europe as a kid, but never to the
Okay.
Far East.
Okay, so first time in the Far East at least, what was your expectations walking in?
Um, my instructor laughed when he read my orders. He goes, 3rd FSG. And I'm like, is that overseas? He goes, yeah, it's the Rock. And I'm like, what? He's like, you'll see when you get there. And I'm like, okay. And So, you fly out of Pendleton, you go to Pendleton for the movement center, and you fly out of LA, you do a refuel in Anchorage, Alaska,
Mhm.
and I think everybody's got a picture with this giant polar bear that's in the lobby because it was the only
Oh,
thing open, at 0 dark 30 when you're flying through.
right.
Then you land in Okinawa, and uh, it was October, so it was starting to get cold and rainy, and it was just really bad weather, and we got stuck riding in the back of a 5 ton from Foster down to Hanson or down to Kinzer. So
Oh,
my
that's
sea bag
funny.
is soaked. I'm soaked. Check into my command, uh, and were deployed to Korea for training. So
Hmm.
all there really was a fire watch, 2 or 3 people there, and so we spent the night. They stamped our paperwork and they sent us back up to Camp Foster to work as a military policeman on patrol because there was nothing for us to do until they came back from deployment. So another
Wow.
5 ton ride in the rain back up to Foster. And it's
Oh
like,
man.
gee, great, thanks guys. Yeah, welcome to the Marine Corps.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Welcome to the fleet. How about
Yep.
that? Jeez. So you went back up and just jumped in on one of the patrols, riding shotgun, I'm assuming, something like that.
And I got sent to Camp Kinzer, third FSG,
Hmm.
to be an MP on the base. So I'm in the same barracks as the guys that I'm supposed to be deployed with, but I'm not because they're not
Yeah.
there. Um, get assigned to a corporal. Uh, have to get my Japanese license and do all
Right.
the status of forces agreement paperwork that you got to do to be an MP on
Hmm.
Okinawa, and then the fun part is driving on the wrong side of the road. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fun experience for sure.
yep. And once the corporal felt that I was sufficiently familiar with the base, here's the keys to your own vehicle. Go to work.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Just that quick, huh?
it very quick because
Yeah.
there. I think our at the most we had at a time was maybe 8 people on a shift.
Oh wow.
The bases there aren't really very big,
Right.
and other than the enlisted club, there really wasn't anything going on base.
Hmm.
Nobody, no, and a lot of the times I was working either the night shift from 2200 to 06
Hmm.
or from 12 to 2200.
Right.
So, you'd only have the exchange open for 3 4 hours,
Yeah.
and most of the Marines, really weren't doing anything stupid. So there really wasn't a lot of work for us to do as
Hmm.
MPs.
Wow. That's interesting. Now, how long were you there, or did you stay there on Foster?
So I was on Kinzer. I got back to Third FSG. I deployed to Korea for bear hunt.
Okay.
From that bear hunt, I went directly into a team spirit. So I spent almost half of that year in Korea training in the
Wow.
field, which was really what I wanted to do as a Marine. I didn't want to be a police officer.
So there's two different routes, I guess, when it comes to MPs. So you have the guys that do the cop related
Yep,
stuff on base, and then you have the more infantry based.
right.
Uh, so that's normal? Like that's the way it's always been, type of thing, or
It's always been that way.
okay.
Um, Unfortunately, a lot of the military police really want to be law enforcement when they get out. They see it
Hmm.
as a
Right.
stepping stone. Um, and in
Yeah.
every branch of the service, it's the same way. Most guys that you see joining law
Hmm.
enforcement in the military want to be law enforcement in the civilian world, and so they use that as
Right.
a stepping stone. Whereas, I like the idea of being in the field and being a Marine and deploying,
Right.
and so I felt more at home and more comfortable in that environment. I did very well in the law enforcement side, obviously because later on I was selected to be a criminal investigator. But
Right. Yeah.
for me, if I had a choice, I would have done more deployable units, more field
Yeah.
training than the law enforcement side.
Okay. And then, so you spent your year, half of it in Korea,
Yep.
and the rest. Now, did you get to go out and have fun in Okinawa as well, or?
Well, Okinawa's, people really don't understand how segregated Japan really is.
Yeah.
Um, if you're not, and they'll say it, if you're not Nipponese, if you're not Japanese, you're not a citizen, you're not a person, you're not an entity.
Right.
We would get Marines, if we were lucky, we'd get Marines turned over to us that had gotten in trouble out in town.
Mm-hmm.
And, the things that would happen to them were just, by American standards, law enforcement standards were atrocious. If you
Yeah.
mouthed off, they beat you down. They didn't care. There was no
Mm-hmm.
escalation of force or anything. They just knock you down. They wouldn't bandage you up. They'd just turn them over to us and be like, "Yeah, this guy was an idiot." And be like, "All right, thanks for giving us back to him." Um,
Wow.
if you had a car, uh, all our cars at the time, the license plate had a Y as the first letter
Mm-hmm.
of the license plate. So every military person, didn't matter what branch of service, they all had a Y.
Right.
And if you were out in town and a civilian, an Okinawan, wanted to park somewhere and there was no parking available, the police would go down the street. They'd see your car, they'd tow it.
Wow.
You'd get towed. Doesn't matter if you were parked legally or illegally or anything. They just tow it, impound your car, so the Japanese person could park.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
If you got into an accident, 99% of the time it was your fault. And the logic was, if you weren't in the military, you wouldn't be there. The accident wouldn't have occurred.
I guess I can see the way of thinking.
Right? So you're at fault, and you're done. Um, so having deployed to Korea, I really enjoyed my time there. So once again, the Marine Corps is like, we want to save money. Would you like to extend on Okinawa for a year? We'll give you X amount of money. We'll give you leave, or we'll give you half money, half leave. And I took the leave option because I was in the hole. Because before going to Okinawa, I took the leave before going, which was 30 days. And so 7 days and 30 days, I'm only been in the Marine Corps less than a year. I'm 37 days in the hole stepping on Okinawa. So to get flush, I took the 30 days. And so it brought me back up to, positive numbers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
not a lot of positive numbers, but positive numbers. That's
well, it's better than being 30 days in the hole.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Absolutely.
And
So you ended up staying over there. Did you continue with the same unit, or did you end up doing something different?
I did get back to Marine Corps base. I was up at Foster for a short time. I was a custom inspector for a short time because we did our own customs of the military coming in, going from Okinawa with U.S. Customs. The Japanese let us do our own thing because 99% of the time, none of our people went out into the civilian community. So we did all of the customs. We did deploy to the Philippines for Kennel Guard 1987.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with Marchenko, SEAL Team 6, Red Cell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we went against him in the Philippines.
I love it.
I read his book, his first book about Red Cell, and how he was testing terrorist attacks on U.S. military bases. And this is back in 1987, and I'm like, this guy's right on the ball. We do not have an anti-terrorism posture. This is really not good, and it's going to bite us in the butt down the road someday.
Yeah.
And so we're in the Philippines, and the Navy SEALs were testing the base, but they had worked out these really crazy rules of engagement for them. They were given basically a police type badge that identified them as red cell when
Hmm.
they wanted to be on the base and use the exchange, go to the gym, do whatever, and we couldn't touch them when they had that badge on.
Oh man.
So they had a free pass to do all the intelligence collection that they wanted, and we would see them and we would just be like, yeah, great.
That's messed up.
And then they could walk around the corner, turn around the corner, they could take the badge off, pull out their terrorist, goodie bag, and do whatever they wanted. And we were like, I just checked the guy. Now all of a sudden he's a bad guy.
Wow.
And that whole scenario is what got Marchenko in trouble and thrown into Leavenworth and kicked out of the Navy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you were in a book. There you go. That's good.
Yeah, but he doesn't talk about us.
Well, you were kind of in a book.
He talks about how he beat the security and assassinated the admiral in charge of the base. And, I'm like, oh, dude, he didn't cover all the layers of security that were actually there that we had set up.
Yeah.
And, what the really important part was the admiral's office is on the second deck. And to get from the first deck, to get in the building, you had to be on the passes, you had to be on the lists, we had to know who you were. So, and to get to the building, you had to go through other layers of security, 50 meters out, 100 meters out. I mean, there's no way that, the garbage guy was checked. He didn't get into the building.
Yeah.
It was locked down. We had it very well secured. And so every morning at 09, he had a meeting with the admiral, and he'd come in with his badge, and we'd all check him out. He'd get to the ladder well to go up to the second deck, and there was a pass system there. The only people that were on the second deck had a pass. There was no visitor's pass. So if you wanted to see the admiral and you weren't allowed on the second deck, they hadn't made a pass for you, the admiral would come down to the first deck to the conference room and meet you there.
Yeah.
Nobody was going up to the second deck unless they had a pass. And so because he has a brief with the admiral every morning, he has a pass there. So we take the pass that he had, put it in the slot, take out the one that only stays within the building and only stays within the second deck, hand it to him. He goes up. And the last line of defense for the admiral were two, back then it was just NIS agents, Naval Investigative Service, which later became Naval Criminal Investigative Service because people didn't understand that they only investigated criminal offenses and not just, anything that somebody wanted investigated. And so there's a officer on the outside, and that agent doesn't care about the pass. If he doesn't recognize you, he hasn't been introduced to you and said that you're authorized to meet the admiral, he's gonna take you out. You're not going in that office. And on the inside is his partner, his counterpart.
Yeah.
And he's not opening that door unless the guy on the outside gives him the password to open the door. So the guy on the outside doesn't even have a key. He can't open the door. He can't get in there.
Wow.
Unless the person inside opens it up, and he won't open it unless that person hears the password from the outside.
Yeah.
And so it's 8:00. Here comes Marchenko. Everything's good to go. He's walking up like any other day. Gets through the two NCIS agents, and as he's going into the room, he reaches in, takes out the simulated weapon, takes out the two agents, and takes out the admiral.
Oh my word.
And we're all like, no.
That's not, you don't play the game like that. Jeez.
And he said that, that somehow this would be possible, that the passes could be compromised, that the agent outside could be compromised to allow access. Yes. you know, if somebody was able to get a hold of his family, somebody was able to put him into a compromised position where he had to do this. Yes, it is possible in the world. Everything's possible, but
Right.
the way he did it was impossible.
Yeah.
And
Almost
so,
maybe.
so the admiral was a little bit pissed off, and
Rightfully so.
he then looked at what Marchenko was doing while he was there in the Philippines and discovered that instead of taking the per diem and renting a hotel in the community as he was being paid to do, he was staying with a friend and pocketing the money.
Oh, geez.
And when you're talking about a month training in the Philippines, 30, 40 guys being paid to live on the economy, getting $200-300 a week, a day, or whatever it was, it added up to some serious cash, and
Yeah.
that's what actually was his downfall.
No kidding. Wow. Yeah, that'll get you every time. The money. If you tell you so many people get messed up because of money. It's just ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, so you do your time, finish up in Okinawa. So you're there for 2 years total.
Yep.
And then so you extended just for 1 year.
Just for 1 year.
Okay. And then what was the plan for you after that?
So they forgot about me. I was FAP to base. I was working at Camp Foster as a patrolman, and I've got my short timers calendar out. I'm checking off the days, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get DFAP'd. I'm going to go back to 3rd FSG. From 3rd FSG, I'm going to get my orders back to the States, and I'm going to go home. Yeah. I'll go to my next duty station, and nothing's coming up. So, I call back down to my command. I'm like, hey guys, what's going on? And they're like, what do you mean what's going on? I'm like, I'm here. I'd like to go back to the States. And they're like, what? And I'm like, and there was a disconnect between go back to my next duty station and be EAS'd, because most NCOs, most corporals that have been on Okinawa are at the end of their tour and they're going home and they're going to EAS.
I see, yeah.
And there's a stipulation that if you are stuck on Okinawa past your EAS, it was like $100 a day that they had to pay you for the inconvenience.
Wow.
And so that mistake lit a fire underneath the admin's butt. And instead of, getting back to my unit and waiting for a MAC flight and flying back to California, they put me on a commercial flight.
Oh, wow.
The very next day, basically, to get back to the States.
Well, that's not a bad deal. Jump on a commercial flight, fly back.
It sounds better, but it isn't, because you're not in first class. You're in in the back with everybody else. So it didn't matter one way or the other. You're still
still crammed in.
Yeah. Still crammed in. And so that was the problem. And to get me back, they didn't have orders, so they actually typed my name underneath another Marine's orders. So another Marine is going back to the States, and he's going to Camp Pendleton, and so there's my name added to the front of the paperwork, where there's only supposed to be one name. And there's now two.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so
that is wild.
I get back, I go home on leave for a short time. And while I'm home on leave, I receive a telegram, an actual telegram from the Marine Corps stating to report in immediately to MCRD San Diego.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm supposed to go to Camp Pendleton. Why is this saying MCRD San Diego? Or like, do they think I'm going to boot camp again or something? There's no unit assigned to it. It's just MCRD San Diego.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is a problem.
Yeah.
And so fortunately there was a reserve unit in my hometown. I went to see the sergeant major, showed him the paperwork, the telegram. He made a phone call and he's like, no, no, you're good. Show up when your leave ends, check in. You're going to be a military policeman there. And I'm like, okay, thank you, sergeant major. I get there, I check in. I'm working about a month or two. And I talked to the Marine up at Camp Pendleton, and he's like, "You're a deserter." I'm like, "What do you mean I'm a deserter?" He's like, "You're a deserter. You never checked in. You know, you've been gone over 40 days. You know." And I'm like,
Oh
I'm
no.
working as an MP down at MCRD San Diego," and he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got orders here. They changed them." And he's like, "Okay, they think you're supposed to be here. If you've been getting paid, if you get everything," I'm like, "I'm getting paid. Everything's good." And he's like, "Okay." So I had to go to my operations chief and say, "Hey, boss, you need to call up to Camp Pendleton and tell him I'm down here."
Let them know I'm not UA or.
No, it was past being UA. It was past 30 days. I was a deserter.
Oh yeah.
In their eyes, they had put in the
Yeah,
paperwork for me to be a deserter. I was like, okay.
Oh my gosh. Holy cow. Well, so here you are, second enlistment. Now you're a deserter. That's not a deserter.
Yep.
Yeah. Working as an MP at the recruit depot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you want to do law enforcement work, that is not the place to do it.
Yeah.
Because
you can see that.
you're in the middle of San Diego. Every day, retirees are coming on the base, you know, senior enlisted, senior officers, some retired admirals and generals, you know. Every Friday there's a graduation. So there's hundreds of families of coming on the base every day. It was an open base at the time because pre 9/11.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was just, it was, you know, in all intents and purposes, you know, we call it Hollywood. It was Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah. You had to put on a show for, you know, everybody that was coming in and out. And yeah. I wouldn't want to stand guard or do anything there on MCRD.
Yeah.
There's
some good things that come out of it. You know, I got to meet a World War II Raider.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Interestingly enough, he had gone UA and was a deserter. He, after the war, he was like, "I'm done," and did not wait for his out processing. He had seen enough, didn't want to do any more, and was like, "Peace out." And he actually drove up in, I can't remember if it was a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. You know, I mean, he'd been very well off in his life. And he still had his ID card from World War II.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. And so we're sitting there and we're like, "Who are you? Who were you assigned to?" And he tells us and we're like, "Oh, wow, Raiders." And so now we're trying to contact Headquarters Marine Corps. It's a weekend to find out what to do with this guy. Yeah. And they're like, "That unit doesn't exist anymore. There's the closest we have is to recon at Camp Pendleton." And, you know, it wasn't even forced recon back then, I don't think. I think it was just recon battalions.
Yeah.
And so Headquarters Marine Corps pawned him off to Camp Pendleton. So we call up to Camp Pendleton and we're like, "Hey, we got this guy down here. He says he's a Raider. We got his ID card. He wants to surrender himself because he's a deserter." And they're like, "We don't know what to do with him." So we're like, "Okay." Took his ID. I don't even think we took his ID card. I think we let him keep his ID card and said, "Semper Fi."
Good luck. Thanks.
You know, he just honestly wanted to clear his conscience and square himself with the Marine Corps.
Wow. That's pretty cool of him, you know, to come in and do that, though.
Yeah.
Especially after that long, you know, and had been that well off, you know.
Yep. And, you know, back then, the systems that you have in place, the electronic systems that track you and everything didn't exist. So, you know, when he deserted, it was a piece of paper that got sent to Headquarters Marine Corps, and Headquarters Marine Corps you know, when computers came in the 80s, that had to be transcribed to a computer and entered into a computer with a unit that didn't exist. And so there's no way of it being carried forward anymore.
Right. Yeah. 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 Very true. Wow. So now you spend how long at MCRD?
I spent about 3-4 years there. That's where I was
Okay.
selected to be a criminal investigator.
Oh wow.
Yep.
So now, what rank do you have to be selected for that?
You have to be a sergeant.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. So you got promoted to sergeant and got selected while you were there. Now, I'm assuming there's more training involved that you have to do, like more advanced training and stuff.
Yeah. You when you're selected, you go through some OJT training, some on the job training. You get taught a lot of the paperwork, a lot of the things that you're going to learn in school.
Right.
Being that it's a recruit depot, there's not a lot of crime. There's a lot of, just studying old cases and doing basically scenarios on paperwork. Right. And then you go to Army CID school, which is academically one of the hardest schools in the military.
No kidding. Wow.
One of the portions of the test is a written test where you're processing a crime scene, and the crime scene is a simulated death.
Okay.
And you have a room with a body in it, a mannequin, and you have to process that room for all the evidence in that room, everything outside of that room. It is no joke, 8 hours of long handwriting.
What?
Yeah.
Ooh. Holy crap.
Yeah, you're sitting there in a chair in the hallway with a clipboard, and you're just writing everything down. You're measuring everything. I mean, you watch the TV show NCIS, and they give you the really cool parts of crime scene, right? Where you pull a fingerprint, or you take a picture, or you do some ultraviolet light. Those really really cool things.
Right.
But the nitty gritty of measuring out the dimensions of the room, the height, the width, the length. Is the floor linoleum? Is it wood? Is it carpet?
Right.
Are there different types of floor? Is it worn? Because all of that can hide trace evidence or lose trace evidence.
Right.
If somebody walks in on a carpet, it will leave a micro indentation that if you use this like static cling system, you can pull out a footprint off of the carpet. Oh yeah. Wow. They don't show all this, the really cool stuff. And so, but that's something that you can do and you do that, and it's 8 hours, and it's just crazy. And while we're at school, the movie Basic Instinct came out.
Yeah.
And so we're watching the movie, and here's this movie about investigating crime scenes and a death and everything. And we're talking about, what they're saying is happening in the movie, and we're like, no, that's BS. This is how you really do it.
Scrutinizing it.
Well, of course, because you're right in the school that's teaching that.
Yeah.
And so you're watching the movie and seeing how realistic it is.
Wow. Now, how long is that school?
That's a 3-month school.
3 months as well. Wow.
Yep.
Whew.
One of the
to learn in a short amount of time.
One of the details you get with is protecting a VIP, being the personal bodyguard of a general or somebody.
Okay.
And so there was 5 Marines in the class. It was a 40-person class, but there's 5 of us that are Marines. And so at that portion, the Army Warrant Officer who's in charge starts off the class, and he starts with his "With what is it in it for me?" Right? Mm-hmm. And so he looks at me, and I was a sergeant at the time. He goes, "Hey, Sergeant Porter, could you do a PSD right now in Germany?" And of course, he expects no. And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, he blinks for a second. He's like, "Uh-oh." And this is before we all had USMC on our uniforms and our names. So
right, yeah.
he doesn't realize, he can't see in the classroom that I'm a Marine because we're all dressed exactly the same.
Uh-huh.
And so he goes, okay, how would you get to Germany? I go, Visa, MasterCard, American Express. He's like, what? I'm like, I got my credit card, same way I pay, my travel to get to this school. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, how do you get into Germany? I go, well, if they don't take my Armed Forces ID card, I've got my passport. He's like, okay, what are you going to do when you get there? And I hold up this book. It's about 4 inches thick, big, huge black binder that they just handed us on what to do as a PSD. And I go, whatever the book tells me. And he's like,
I love it.
and he looks at me and he goes, you're wrong. Right? And I'm sitting there going, how can I be wrong? And he goes into the class, and the first break I go over to him. I'm like, hey, he was, like I said, he was a warrant officer in the Army. I'm like, hey, warrant officer, why was I wrong? And he goes, we have 3 days to teach this class. If I said you were right, we didn't have 3 days to teach anything because you were right.
Yeah. Okay. I can see it. Wow. Fun course you went to.
It was a course. There's some other things that like I said, that I'll never forget writing for 8 hours. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
you're just sitting there writing, and whatever you don't use, there's a certain way that you have to show that you didn't use it. You have to close it out. You did a logbook where you have to Z it out in initials and make sure that every piece of paper is in order and they're all numbered in order. And you get done and you got this stack of paperwork that you got to turn in, and that's all got to be dated and timed and stamped, and oh man, it still gives me nightmares.
Now, would you say that the school was sufficient enough for what you had to do in the fleet?
It was like any school. It gave you the basics. The one thing they really can't teach you is how to interrogate a person and get them to confess to a crime.
Yeah.
Because if the person has committed a crime and they planned it and they know that they were going to get caught, there's a possibility of getting caught, and they've got an excuse, they've got stories, and they've got somebody to corroborate with them, then how do you break down those barriers?
Right.
If that other person that's involved with the crime as a civilian has no military affiliation, how do you contact that person? How do you get them to talk to you? Because they're like, I'm not in the military, you can't touch me. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's what you think, but we can touch you.
There's ways you can get them to get them in and talk.
Well, no, I mean, if they don't want to come to us, we contact the local sheriff's department. We say, hey, we're going out to such and such's house. We need an escort because we need to talk to this person on this case. If they have the manpower, they'll show up and be there with us. If not, we knock on their door. They don't want to come out. It's like, okay. We go back to the base and we put out a warrant for their arrest.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's not a county, it's not a city, county, or state. It's a federal warrant.
Ooh,
yeah.
Yeah.
And so now the U.S. Marshals come and knock on your door in the middle of the night.
That changes things a little bit.
It does. And when you explain it to people like that, they're like, oh, I'll talk to you. Yeah, whatever you need.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, I like it. So, where was the first place that you went as a CID?
I went to, as a fully sworn off CID agent, I went up to Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
Marine Corps base.
Marine Corps base?
Yep.
So, how did that work for you? Like, you're coming in fresh from the schoolhouse, learning all this stuff. How was that transition into the job itself?
Well, I mean, just like anywhere else, at that point as a sergeant, you're expected to really hit the road running. Mm-hmm. There's very little, as we would say, snap in time, right. Time to adjust, to acclimatize. You show up and it's basically, here's the cases. Start going to work.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now, what would you say the majority of your cases, the types of things that you had to investigate? What types of things were they?
So we had a letter of agreement with the NCIS as to what cases we would handle and what cases that they would handle. If it was over a certain dollar amount, they would handle it. If it was involved certain personal crimes, they would handle it. Um,
Mhm.
we would handle basically the misdemeanor stuff, and some of the smaller felonies, not so serious felonies. It's hard to say that
Yeah.
honestly, but what people don't understand is what could possibly not even be a violation in the civilian world is a violation in the military, and being it on a military base, it can very easily become a felony because of it being a federal installation.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the thing that people don't understand. The severity increases because you're on a military base. A civilian police officer pulls over a guy and he's got a roach on him. This is before marijuana became decriminalized
Right.
and all this fun stuff that they're doing now. Out in the civilian world in San Diego, the officer's really not going to do anything.
Right.
That person's on a military installation. You're now trafficking a narcotic onto a federal property.
Ooh.
Doesn't matter if how much it is. That's the law.
Right.
Now, if you have a good lawyer and hey, somebody was in your car, you don't know who they were, because they're a hitchhiker and you never saw it.
Wow.
There might be a way of getting out of it. I mean, we actually had, when I was, because it was San Diego, we'd have Marines come up that bought a car off of somebody that they thought was a little bit sketchy,
Mm-hmm.
and they'd have our dogs run through it
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
because they didn't want to be coming through the gate during an inspection and have the dog come through and all of a sudden alert on something.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to explain, hey, I just bought the car. I don't know what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. They're getting hemmed up for somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I never even thought about that before.
Oh, yeah.
Buying a car from somebody. Yeah, I can see how that could mess you up.
Well, in San Diego, there's big surfer community. You're
Mhm.
close
Oh,
to the Mexican border. A lot of things would come across the border that weren't supposed to,
yeah.
other
Mhm.
than just illegals. So, there all sorts of possibilities there.
Yeah, very much so. Now, being as part of Marine Corps base, was it just Pendleton that you would investigate, or
Yeah.
would there be? Yeah.
Unless we would interact with other bases, because what would happen sometimes is somebody that was on another base would transfer to Pendleton. They'd have an open case at their last base. They'd send us a lead. We'd have to talk to the guy, investigate the guy at our base, send them back the information that we've discerned from that person, and vice versa.
Okay. Wow. I mean, it really is a cool job. On the civilian side, what would you equate that to?
Being a police detective.
Police detective.
Yep.
Wow. And now, in the regular police force, how long does somebody need to be, say just on the beat, and then eventually work their way to that? How long does that take?
That is a personal thing. So a
Okay.
buddy of mine who was at MCRD and was an MP with me there, he actually did his whole career in San Diego PD as a patrolman. He did not do anything other than patrol.
And that was by choice.
Exactly. He didn't want to be a patrol supervisor. He didn't want to be a sergeant. He didn't want to be a detective. He just wanted to work patrol. And so his whole career with San Diego PD was just on the patrol.
Wow.
I had another buddy who went into CID around the same time I did. He got out of the Marine Corps. He did a year with a civilian police department and was promoted to detective
Wow.
because he had the training. He had the experience as a Marine, 10 years in the Marine Corps as a military policeman, different bases, and had the training as a criminal investigator, had been a criminal investigator for several years in the Marine Corps. And so they're like, we're saving a boatload of money by taking this guy in and making him one of our detectives.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. You gotta save money where you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And now, how long were you with Marine Corps base?
I was with Marine Corps base I think 2-3 years.
Okay.
We have each division, group, and the wing, since they're all deployable, they have criminal investigators assigned to those units, but they work at base when they're not deployed. If they're not in Afghanistan, if they're not in Somalia, if they're not
Okay.
deployed, they're on base because at division, there's nothing for them to do. So what occurred was I was the Marine that was at division, the criminal investigator that was at division, he got out and they needed to fill that seat. So I got PCA'd from base to division. And when my time in CID was over and I reverted back to a military policeman, I was in division as a military policeman.
So now is that you said you reverted back? What? How does that work?
I got in trouble.
Ah, I see. Okay.
My MOS was revoked.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah.
And if I was to write a biography, there's no way people would believe some of the things that I say. So the warrant officer and I did not see eye to eye. We did not agree. And so he took it upon himself to revoke my MOS. And
Hey.
I had been passed over for staff sergeant as a criminal investigator. And so I was going to be forced out of the Marine Corps as a sergeant at 12 years.
Oh, okay.
So my career is over. I'm done. I'm looking at joining the San Diego Police Department. I was actually looking at becoming a rescue swimmer for the Coast Guard.
Oh wow.
Well, I'm a really good swimmer.
You got to be to do that job.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm distraught that this is going to happen. Well, now my MOS gets revoked. I'm no longer 5821. I've been passed over for staff sergeant twice as a sergeant as a 5821, but I've never been looked at for staff sergeant as a 5811.
Right. So at that point, because you haven't been looked at, you could stick around longer.
I have an opportunity to be promoted to staff sergeant.
Yeah.
I am the second most senior sergeant in the whole Marine Corps as a 5811.
Wow.
Nobody else has been in as long as I have in that MOS.
Wow.
And I get selected for staff sergeant.
Well, that's what? A blessing in disguise, maybe?
And you know how I got promoted?
Huh.
I went to the colonel who revoked my MOS and he wrote me a letter of recommendation for staff sergeant as a military policeman.
No kidding.
Because he knew I was a good MP. He knew I was a good Marine. I just wasn't a good criminal investigator.
Yeah.
I could do, I was decent at the job, but it's a very small MOS. And that's the problem is in our at Camp Pendleton, I think we had 10 sergeants, 10, 11 sergeants, and one was selected for staff sergeant every year.
Oh, wow.
And so half of the guys are getting out because they can't get promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was fortunate that I reverted back to a 5811 and was selected for staff sergeant.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now, being out of the field, because you were out of the field for a couple of years, you said, right? So doing CID. So coming back to regular MP, how was that? Like, and getting selected for promotion.
Well,
now it comes with more responsibility at that point.
I was, like I said, in my blood, I liked being in a deployable unit. I liked being in the field. So I never really lost that edge, that side of it. I was still very proficient in that. I maintained my proficiency in that side of the MOS. So the difficulty there was coming in and having Marines that had deployed to the first Gulf War, who had deployed to Somalia in the unit.
Yeah.
And now, you're coming in basically in their eyes as a boot. You got no combat experience. You don't know what it's like, and trying to earn their respect and being promoted to staff sergeant.
Yeah. Two big hurdles right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Now, how did you handle that whole situation? Like, was it a fairly difficult challenge for you, or how did you go about it?
Um, I just went as I normally do. I looked at the regulations. I looked at what we are doing. Um, Tried to make what we were doing better. So, for example, when I first got there, I was a sergeant, but I'm the senior most sergeant around,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm with the CO. We're driving around 29 Palms doing our training, going across the 400 ranges, throwing hand grenades, shooting Mark 19s, shooting our 50 cals, shooting our 240s, shooting our M203s, and we kept passing by one range number. And I'm like, why aren't we going to this range? And my CO goes, well, that's the range for AT4s. I'm like, okay. And he goes, the battalion gets 4 AT4s for training each year.
Oh my God, just four!
Just 4.
Wow.
There's 4 companies.
Yeah.
So technically, theoretically, each company should fire 1.
Yeah.
But we'd never requested our AT4. So
Yeah.
we never went to that range. So we get back to Pendleton. Captain turns to me. He's like, hey, you want to go shoot the AT4? Make it happen. I'm like, okay. So I go down to our ammo tech. I'm like, hey, what paperwork do I have to fill out? What do I got to do? He goes like, you're the first person to come and ask. I'm like, what do you mean? I've got 4 sitting here nobody uses.
Wow.
So the next range, the next time we went out to 29 Palms, our company fired all 4 of the battalion's AT4s.
Nice. That's, sometimes you just gotta ask.
If I like, I'm not a big sports fan, but I like more Michael Jordan because he seems to be a really down to earth and reasonable guy. And, his expression, you will miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Very true. Yeah.
And so I was always one to push the limits, to ask the questions, to try and figure out stuff. When I was promoted to staff sergeant and I was in charge of ranges, the recon Marines had arty simulators they'd set off for their training.
Yeah.
And so I went to our ammo tech. I'm like, hey, how do I use these things? How can I request these things for my training? And he's looking at me like, staff sergeant, what kind of training are you doing? I'm like, whatever training I can. Can I get these? Can I use these? And he's like, yeah, you got to go through some classes and, I don't know. And, so it's one of those things where the time that I was there, I didn't get to actually use them, but I was going to try and use them, in my training to, shock my Marines out of complacency at certain times of training. Because
Oh yeah.
an arty simulator is really going to wake you up.
Yeah, it will. Especially when you don't think it's coming.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's smart. I like that. Oh man. Now you get promoted to staff sergeant, and how long was it that you stayed there? Because you were at Pendleton with headquarters battalion. Who were you with?
Headquarters battalion, 1st Marine Division. Yep.
Okay, and what years was that?
That was I got selected in '98.
98. Okay.
Yep.
Very nice.
And so
All right.
that's when a lot of Marines look at a B billet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chose to be a drill instructor, and I selected to be a drill instructor at MCRD San Diego. And
Okay.
I went through the package, got approved, got screened, and I went down. I went to class 3. Was it 398? Yeah, 398 at MCRD San Diego,
Okay.
and was a drill instructor from '99 to 2001.
And now, what company were you with?
I was with Charlie Company.
Charlie Company.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I hate to tell you this, and I'm not trying to say anything crazy, but February of '99 is whenever I went to boot camp at MCRD San Diego. So we did spend a little time at the same place doing different roles. But yeah. I was in Bravo Company when I went through.
Oh, so you're in the same. You might have been in the
Yeah.
same barracks as I was,
Ooh, oh, possibly.
or you were right next to us. I can't remember if Bravo, if we shared a barracks with Bravo, we shared it with Alpha.
So I was in the barracks right next to the parade deck, but
Yeah,
right across from RTR.
that's the same barracks I was in.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
That was Alpha and Charlie were in
I
there.
probably saw you once or twice, and probably was yelled at by you once or twice.
I have a really good one about that.
Okay.
I was standing outside of the House of Knowledge.
Uh,
My platoon is in there getting their class, and you know how right next to the House of Knowledge is the dental office,
yeah.
and you have the recruit highway that goes up right up the middle and goes all the way to medical at the other end.
Right.
So I'm standing out there waiting for my boys to come out, and the Navy, you know how the Navy is with the recruits, and how they just lose their mind when in there. And so these two knuckleheads come out, and they're back on the block. They're smoking and joking. They're talking. They're not in step. They have lost their mind, right? And I'd say it's a good 50 yards between the House of Knowledge and the recruit highway.
Yeah.
And I see these two idiots, and I just full on drill instructor voice just yell at these two, snap them back to reality. They start marching, you know, back to the world. They're locked
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, you know, I remembered it because, you know, it was a unique thing. It wasn't something that you did every day. You really, as a drill instructor, you really don't yell and correct other recruits that aren't yours, because you're so intent on your platoon, you don't have time to talk to other recruits and do things with other platoons. You're busy training yours. That's your whole concern. You don't care, you know, what everybody else is really doing.
Yeah.
And years later, when I was a gunny and I was back on Pendleton, I had to I had to go to the brig, and I was standing outside the brig with another Marine and somebody who's being put into the brig, and the huge door opens up, steel door, you know, looks like freaking NORAD, opens up. This head pops out, looks at us, pops back in, and the door slams shut. And if you've ever heard that door, that is a door that signals finality. When it closes, and you're like, you're on the outside and you're like, oh, I don't want to go near that door. I don't want to be on the wrong side of that door.
Right.
And so I was like, what the? And so I look at the Lance Corporal with me. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I don't know. It's my first time here. And I'm like, okay, all right. And a few minutes later, we get let in, and there's that same Marine. He's behind the plexiglass, bulletproof glass, processing the person in that I escorted over. And we get all done, turn around, the Lance Corporal starts walking out. You know, he's the driver. And just as I'm turning to go to the door, the Marine stops and says, excuse me, Gunnery Sergeant, were you a drill instructor? And I'm standing there in my Charlies, and of course I've got the ribbon that says I was a drill instructor, and I'm like,
Right.
yes, I was a drill instructor. And he looks at me and goes, you yelled at me. And I'm like, I'm looking at him, I'm like, you're not one of mine. You're not, I don't recognize you. What do you mean I yelled at you? And he tells me the story of how he'd come out of dental and I had yelled at him. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that day.
Oh, that's good. That's a really good one. Holy cow. Yeah, my so in '99 I had senior drill instructor Staff Sergeant Ross, drill instructor Staff Sergeant Rudisell.
Rudisell. That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, I think he was an MP, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% on that though. And then Staff Sergeant McWilliams and Staff Sergeant Lopez.
Yeah, Lopez. There's 100 Lopez's. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, those were my drill instructors. So good times.
Yep.
Wow. And now you did. How many cycles did you end up doing?
I did 3 cycles, and then I went to the swim tank to be an inside ABS.
Nice. Okay. I got to do that while I was a drill instructor.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah, yeah.
For me, I think that is the best duty for a drill instructor because when I
Okay.
was there, you know, we worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was permanent personnel swim, so we only worked every third Wednesday. Then we worked Thursday, Friday, had weekends off, only had to stand battalion duty like once a month.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go in, I think it was like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And there are times where we were done by the day, 1300 easily.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Now, when I went over there, they sent me over as the staff and COIC, so I didn't get to. I hardly ever got to actually go on the pool deck and be a McQuist, if you will. Basically, I sat and did paperwork most of the time. I had to go sit in meetings and go to all the different companies, and so my team, they got half days a lot of times, but not me. I had to stay there for meetings at 1500 and
Yeah.
all the fun stuff. But
Yeah. By the end of my tour there, um, towards, I was getting ready to uh, finish my tour, my 3 years there. It was probably like 4 or 5 months time frame, and my company wanted to pull me back.
mm,
And I wouldn't even have done a complete cycle at that time. I would have been back,
wow,
for part of a platoon, part of a cycle. I don't think I was even going to do a full cycle, and I wasn't going to go back as a senior. And I'm like, why? You know, what are you doing this for? And I went to my chief, my first sergeant. I'm like, look, first sergeant, this is ridiculous. I'm not going back to be a senior. I'm not going back to do anything special. You know, I've been promoted to gunny, so I'm not going to be the company gunny or anything. I'm going to go back and I'm going to be a third hat or something. I'm like, this is junk. And so I got to finish my time at the tank. Didn't have to go back and do any more cycles, do any more work in the trenches. Um, and so I finished up there basically in the special teams. I dealt with the recruits that couldn't swim. So the first day that they were there and they couldn't make it, I took them to the shallow end and I trained them. One of my favorite things to do is you're training them how to swim on their back and do the modified backstroke.
right,
And I could hold my breath for 100 meters.
yeah,
I could swim the length of the pool back and forth, and so I could literally lie on the bottom of the pool for a good 4 or 5 minutes, like a crocodile. And that's what I'd do is I'd lie down, and they'd be coming across above me like landing craft going to the beach, and I'd watch them from underneath to make sure that they were doing everything right, that they weren't touching the bottom of the pool. Because being at that depth, it was really easy to pretend to be doing it and just tippy toe across the pool on your back, right?
yeah.
And
That's true.
and so I'd be lying there under the water, and I'd be watching them, and I'd see this one kid, he'd start doing it, and so as these, I think it was 10 across, I'd line myself up so I'd be right underneath him as he was coming over, and I'd stand up and I'd grab him underneath the armpits, and I'd launch him into the air like a ballistic missile. And I mean, this kid would go into the air. He'd clear the pool, and he'd be in the air 4 or 5 feet because I'd stand up and just throw him up. And he'd come up and he'd be like, oh, and he'd splash down in the water. And all the other recruits paid attention. They'd be like, oh, not doing that. And never had a kid fail. Always got the kids to pass. And my gunny would come out, the chief instructor would come out and be like, hey, no, you can't do that. I'm like, it works. They all swim. And he's like, yeah, but
Sometimes you just got to turn and look the other way and pretend you didn't see it. That's what I say. Yeah. I don't know. Now, if I was chief, I just would not have looked at all. I'm like, yeah, go do your thing. If it works, it works. Yeah. Wow. So you finish up there. Where did you end up next? Where'd you go?
So I actually got married when I was a drill instructor at that swim tank.
Okay.
One of the few Marines to be married and not divorced as a drill instructor.
Yeah.
Which is another, you know, oddity. You know, that, you know, that job just kills marriages. You
Oh
know,
yeah, it does.
13 weeks of not seeing your spouse. I mean, you go home if you're lucky for a couple hours, but you know, it's there's no quality time. And
Just 'cause for me, I'd go home and fall asleep immediately.
yeah,
Like my wife would be like, "Oh, let me fix you something," and I'd be like, "Okay," and then
yeah,
I'd be out.
yeah. There was, and you're, you know, as soon as you got to sleep, you had to wake up to get back.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. True.
and so we're newly married. I'm talking to my monitor. You know, as a gunny, you get a little bit more leeway, and you really do have to fit into commands.
Yeah.
You can't just be thrown anywhere, hodgepodge. And I hadn't been overseas since 1988, and it's now 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And so my monitor's like, "What do you want, Okinawa or Okinawa?" like like there's no other place I can go, and he's like, "Okinawa." I'm like, "All right." So you know, I talked to my wife, and she's like, "I don't want to go to Okinawa. I'm not going there for 3 years. You know, we just got married. I don't want you to go there. We just got married." And I'm like, "Okay, there might be one option I can ask for. It's a stretch, but I might be able to be an instructor out at Fort Leonard Wood for the military police." And she's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "All right." So I asked, and believe it or not, I got it.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Okay.
Which tells you how that command was.
Yeah.
You know, when the monitor is saying you're going overseas, you're not getting out of this, and you say, "Well, what about here?" And they go, "You're going." It's like, uh-oh, what did I just get myself into?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
but even though uh, it was there, it was in Missouri, my wife had a really good job. We'd actually just bought a house in San Diego. So it's like we still weren't together. I was there unaccompanied for 3 years, and she was in San Diego for that time.
Yeah.
Um, if you know the area, it's a little bit different. It's it's very very there can be some very racist areas. And my wife was half Mexican, and I was like, yeah, "This isn't a good place for you to come. You don't want to be here."
Wow.
There was times where I'd go to places and I'm like, I'm not white enough. I'm driving a F-250, and I got tattoos, and I'm not white enough.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. And
Mm.
so she took it at first okay, but you know, as time goes by, you don't get a lot of time together. She's like, I want to come out and see you. So I was like, "All right, it's my last year. Come out for the Marine Corps birthday. I'll show you around. We'll have a good time." We did that. Had no problems. She got back to the airport in St. Louis after I dropped her off. I maybe gone 20 minutes. She calls me on the phone. She's like, "You're not going to believe what's going on." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "The Grand Wizard for the state is in the row next to me talking about how he hates everybody here."
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
In the middle of St. Louis, in the airport. And she's just like,
God.
"I understand why you didn't want me to come out here." And I'm like, "I told you it can be different."
Wow.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
What year was that, you say?
That was 2003.
2003. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Jeez. It's amazing that that's still a thing. You know?
Well, I mean, it's we have a resurgence of the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
You know, why is that a thing?
Yeah.
It's because of the economy, because of the politics, it's because of the media. You know, it's because of whatever. These things, like everything else, you know, we know it in the Marine Corps. There's cycles. There's times where
Oh, yeah, for sure.
where things are one way, and then they swing the other way. You know, we can see it right now. You know, the new Secretary of War, trying to get back to higher standards and hold people to accountability.
Right.
You know, I've seen, you know, in the what I do as Gunny Claus, I see Marines all the time, active duty reservists, retirees, Marines that have served 4 years and gotten out. I don't see a big change in the Marines. You know, they all seem to be cut from the same cloth that I was cut from, the same cloth that you were cut from. But the higher ups, the ones that have to deal with politics, that's where the problem seeps in. Because now, you know, as a gunny, I all I cared about was my Marines and doing, you know, getting my 20. I didn't care what happened after that, as long as my Marines were taken care of. But you know, you got somebody who's sitting there and he's now, you know, a colonel, and he's looking at, well, I'm at my 20. Am I going to stay in, or am I going to go to Raytheon, or am I going to go to, you know, whatever defense contractor? And so now he starts playing politics instead of just concentrating 100% on what the Marines need.
Absolutely. Yeah. It happens all too often, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Hey, do you mind if we take just a short pause? I got to go make a quick head call.
Yeah, not a problem.
All right. I'll be back in a second.
Okay. I don't know if you're still there, Sunstar 897. Yes, Yggdrasil, the tree of life. Or the tree of knowledge if you're a Christian. Ooh, doo-doo. Ooh, I didn't want to do that.
All right. Sorry about that.
Oh, not a problem.
Let's see.
Just playing around.
Hit the go button again here. All right. So, yeah. So let's see. You were in at the schoolhouse. How was the schoolhouse for you? Did you enjoy being there doing that teaching? Or?
You know, that's one of the great things about being a drill instructor or any kind of instructor is seeing a Marine progress and become more proficient in their job, in their MOS, and as a Marine, and grow as a Marine. Yeah. So, you know, you get these kids in. It was really funny. I brought the log drills from recruit training with me. Yeah. Fort Leonard Wood has the Army engineers and sappers, so they've got, you know, the log drills there for their guys. And so I wanted to put that into our PT schedule, and you know, carry on with some of the McMap training that they got in our training, along with our defensive tactics that we teach as MPs. And so one of the days I was there, I got a working party from the Marines that were waiting training, the MAT platoon. And we go and we pick up some of the logs. And there's this one log off to the side that wasn't really used by the engineers because it was like twice the size of all the other ones.
Oh, jeez.
right? And so we got a couple of the regular size logs, and I looked over at that one that nobody was using, and I went to the Army guy. I'm like, hey, you guys using that for anything? And he's like, no, you can have that one. We don't use it. I'm like, all right, right. And it was funny that a couple of the Marines, I think all the Marines, I had to have all the Marines carry that one. It wasn't just a couple of Marines carried it, that they all had to get it and put it in the back of the truck. And it was a little bit of extra work. And I heard one of the Marines like, I hope I'm not his student. Right. And then, I pick up my next class and there's that knucklehead standing there. And I looked at him and I go, guess what you got? And he's like,
Yeah.
no, Gunnery Sergeant, please no. I'm like, yeah, you got the big log.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
And then, being an Army base, you're always trying to just mess with the soldiers and show up the soldiers all the time. And so that was you'd get the Marines really hyped up to do things. They're like, at first they're like, oh man, this is BS. This is, you can see them not wanting to do something. And then you'd show them like, look, there's your counterparts in the Army. Look at what they're doing and how ate up that is. And they would be like, they get all remotivated and pumped up and be like, yeah. So
Yeah, very true.
we were out at the Mount Training Facility doing our training one time, and I had my platoon, it was 30 odd Marines, and we were co-using it with an Army training company, and so they've got like 150 Army MPs out there, and generally speaking, you know how it is when you do Op 4, you take a couple of your guys, you make them Op 4, and they're basically run over by the rest of the platoon because you can't really have a good Op 4,
Right.
because then you don't have a good force.
Right.
And so their first sergeant came over to me and he's like, hey, Gunny, what are you doing for your little end of training exercise? I'm like, I don't know, we'll take this side over here. And he's like, how about your guys be the Op 4 for my guys? And I looked at him, I'm like, are you sure, First Sergeant? And he's like, yeah, I really want to see this. This is going to be great. Because he knows his guys are done. He knows it's game over. And I'm like, okay, First Sergeant. All right. So I pull my Marines aside. I get a main force to go defend a certain portion of the area. The Army's got to come in and take it. And then I took a couple of Marines that were really good and said, okay, you're going to be aggressors on the Op 4. And they're like, what? Yeah, you're not going to stay here. As soon as the whistle starts and the exercise starts, I want you to run out the back, circle around, and come in behind their aggressing force and take them out from behind. And they're like,
Nice.
okay. So I gave them a whole buttload of the simulator hand grenades,
Yeah.
right? And so their CO, their first sergeant, and I were standing in the observation area, which can watch the whole Mount town.
Uh-huh.
And the Army starts moving in. My guys start, aggressing them, and they're pulling back, as they go. They're not really holding them. And so now they're totally into the town, and they have no rear security. And my three guys come in the back and just start taking them out. And the CEO is now looking, he's like, wait a minute. What's going on here? Our guys are attacking over here and there's an attack over here. What's going on? And he can't figure it out. And he can't talk to his guys because they have to do this themselves.
Yeah.
And they're just getting tore up. And once that happens, my guys who had been defending realized the Army is disorganized and they're not attacking anymore. And so they come out and they attack the attackers from their prepared defense position. And we just end up just taking out the whole platoon, their whole company,
Wow.
and the CO was livid. He's yelling and screaming at the first sergeant. They can't do this. This is wrong. You got to stop this. And the first sergeant is just in hysterics because he knew what was going to happen. He knew his guys were going to be annihilated, and he wanted to use it as an example to them. Like, hey, look, guys, you're dealing with a different type of person there. Don't mess with these guys.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, good old days.
Yep.
Wow. Now, and you were there 3 years. What happened after that?
I
You
went
were
to,
unaccompanied the whole time.
say again?
You were unaccompanied the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Then I went back to Pendleton, 1MLG.
Okay.
Got there. The company was deploying to OIF. And so I got assigned to headquarters company as their company gunny
Okay.
because there was nothing for me to do in my company. There's, 3 or 4 of us.
Oh, I see.
And then my company came back. We got tasked with OIF 6, and we started doing our workups and our training. One of the things that was an issue was we weren't given our actual missions. We were given a couple things that we were going to do there, but the general, the colonel who was taking over for the general, didn't give us an actual mission for all of my Marines. And so he had some of my Marines were his personal security detail, but we didn't know, really what we were going to do. So I had to leave my training very wide and very broad to cover everything, so that when we got there, if we had to do something, my Marines had some training in it before we went, and it wasn't just a total shock.
Right.
And so one of the difficult things is being MPs, not everybody uses shotguns.
Mm-hmm.
So our marksmanship training unit, or MTU, they could train my Marines on 9mm, they could train my Marines on M16s, they could train my Marines on all our heavy weapons,
Mm-hmm.
but none of them were trained on how to employ the shotgun.
Right.
And so one of the missions I can go over there for is using not shotguns for non-lethal crowd control in other situations. So I don't know if I'm going to fall in on that mission, if it's going to be assigned to me, and I need to train my Marines to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't get the training within my unit. I go to training. I'm like, hey, can you get this? And they're like, no. And at this time, our CO was tasked with Joint Task Force anti-terrorism mission on the Horn of Africa. So our major was deployed, leaving our XO, first lieutenant, as the CO.
Whoa.
He deploys with half of the company, leaving me, the company gunny, acting first sergeant, now as the company commander.
Whoa.
And
Totally
so
splitting it up.
So I'm trying to get my Marines trained, and I'm